Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. So lot in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you.
Goeienaand, good evening, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and welcome to tonight's live stream. Well, just confirmation on this morning's live stream with Michelle and Jarrett. The problem there was they had no power. Good old Eskom, and I believe, I can see it in the side chat, a lot of people are complaining about load shedding, and luckily both our guests are able to make it tonight. And tonight we've got Dr. Peter Munns and Veronica Ncube from AMSA joining us. And having Peter on is going to be quite interesting timing because of what's going on in Israel. And obviously we'll touch on that a bit later. But without me burbling on too much, let me get our guests on. Here we go. Oh, and while I'm doing this, guys, please remember to register on lovinglivetv.com, and also please remember to ask any questions that you might have in the side chat. Hi, Veronica.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. Excellent. I'll just get Peter on. Give me a second.
Awesome stuff.
There we go. He should be with us in a second. So, are you having the same problems with load shedding like everybody else?
Yeah, you know, I come to think of it. This bloody Eskom and all that.
Yeah.
Eskom.
It's beyond the joke,
What
isn't
time?
it?
What time is it that side, Peter? Scott, sorry.
Right here now in Brisbane, Australia, it's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Wow. Did you have to set it up until that time? Why didn't you make it like around midday or something?
I always get up at 2:30 in the morning for my live streams in South Africa. I don't have a live. Peter, are you there?
It's your stream. It's your live stream. What do you mean you don't have a live?
I just tried Peter again. It said Peter Munn's not unavailable. I know he's there. I spoke to him just a moment ago. Okay.
He might be having a bit of a network glitch. That area of his has got a poor bandwidth, eh?
Ah, okay. Well, let's see how we go. I'll just call him once more.
Okay. Cool stuff. Try him again.
Yeah. Oh, here he comes.
Hi, hello,
Peter.
hello. We've got
Hey,
a
Dr.
we've got a
Mark.
Hello, Veronica. Good evening.
You're saying, Peter?
Now we've got another day in paradise. We've got load shedding here.
Oh, gosh. I can see it's dark.
All the
All
more
right.
reasons to speak of these age comms, eh? And the Black Riders.
That's it.
How much time have we got with you, Peter, before you think you'll run out of gas?
Well, I'm charged up on both my phone because I'm on mobile hotspot, and I'm also on I'm on my PC, so there's enough.
Okay. So we've got enough for about an hour or so.
Yeah, plain clothes Boy Scout, always prepared.
Good on you. All right.
Typical of Dr. Hey, Scott.
Sorry, what is that, Veronica?
I'm saying typical of a doctor, always a backup plan.
Yeah, look, Peter is a very smart man. He's always got a solution. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about just now, Peter, is what's going on in Israel. But we'll talk about that a bit later.
Okay.
What I want to talk about right now is addressing Veronica. And Veronica, tell us, what is AMSA?
Okay, thank you very much, first of all, for having me, Scott, and thank you for your viewers as well. And I don't know whether should I say good morning, but it's good evening on my side. AMSA is a watchdog community movement hell-bent on holding all political parties and the government officials accountable. Now, our movement, AMSA, thrives to empower South African citizens to take action, responsibility, and also know the power that they possess.
Right. Now, Peter, there's a good reason you're here. You're a big supporter of AMSA. Can you tell me what you believe is the most important aspect of the policy of AMSA?
Well, Scott, I think, let's say the relationship, it's all about relationships and coalitions and alliances and affiliations and joint venture partnerships. Mm-hmm. We've had many years of engagement with various groups. There's more than 600 political parties in South Africa, and each one of them want to be the new president. But I think that what impressed us with AMSA is not only is it based in Durban, or it had its origins in Durban, but it remained as an activist movement, and that's what it stands for, Activist Movement of South Africa. And just like we've also identified other people who have a similar mindset, that they're not concerned about themselves. It's not self-interest, but it's more about what is good for the country. What do we need right now? Not what is good for us. What is good for our, we all want sheltered employment in the public sector. It's about what we can do to make a difference, hold the government accountable, and not just now, but to have an oversight committee on things like the Zondo Commission, the Anti-Corruption Tribunal, the justice system, and to have answers and not just negative rants or focusing on the negative side, but providing practical solutions to social, economic, political, justice, and health. And I think that's what impressed us more than anything else. And there are very few people that are in this, let's say, I would say almost a crusade, but they're ambassadors for truth. And I think that's what's important, Scott.
Right. And I think that what impresses me is that at the moment in South Africa, you got, I think it's 28 people who are basically running the entire country. They're all basically idiots. They're all fighting each other. They're more interested in their faction fights than actually running the country. And the difference between what the ANC are currently offering people, which we can see just by looking at you, Peter, they're sitting there in the dark. And this is something that's facing the rest of South Africa, complete incompetence. The difference between what we've got right now with the ANC and what AMSA is offering is that it won't be 28 people making the decisions for the entire country. The people will be embraced and be part of the decision making. Am I correct in that suggestion, Veronica?
Absolutely, Scott. And let me just take you through quickly what does AMSA stand for, because you basically touched on that. You know, as an activist movement of South Africa, we uphold meritocracy, which is what Peter has touched on as well when he spoke about the crisis that we've got and the honesty of the people, the type of people that are leading this country. So AMSA upholds meritocracy, pragmatism, and honesty. And you've also mentioned ESCOM just now, a typical example. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm not sure if I still have my camera.
Oh, your camera's on, except it's just flipped you 90 degrees. There you go. You're back again.
Oh, okay. I'm going to leave it on like that. I'm not going to touch it any longer. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's back again. So carry on.
It's just that I don't see myself, so I'm thinking everybody doesn't see me. All right. Let me proceed. Because you just mentioned an issue of crisis. Look, Scott, our country is in need of justice, in law and order. But most importantly, we have leadership and management crisis. And there is a desperate need to put together an infrastructure that can address these issues, resolve these problems, face the challenges, and combat threat. That is the whole reason for mobilizing activism within communities. Just as Peter mentioned, it's not a question of who must get the credit for the work done. It's a question of putting our efforts, pulling through our resources together in one basket, and let's together fight towards the common goal.
Right. Now, can I ask you to just put your phone, just put it vertical, because your phone keeps on pushing you to 90 degrees. So if we just put it so it's just standing up. Oh, okay. Well, okay. Every time someone tries to call you, it actually resets and puts you at 90 degrees. But that's okay.
I see.
But look,
I can't see myself, and I have to depend on you to tell me how it looks.
You look great. We see you perfectly now. Okay.
Awesome stuff.
Now, Peter, is anything you'd like to add to this part of the discussion on AMSA when it comes to the comparing AMSA to, for example, the ANC?
Well, I think there's a great comparison between AMSA and the ANC, because the ANC started in 1912 and it became affectionately known by the followers as the Church of the Poor and the Voice of the Masses. And it was able to gain support and solidarity. I mean, there were serious challenges at that time. I think the ANC actually had a very good opportunity to make a success. Veronica, you need to move your telephone again.
I tell you what, I suggest, Veronica, rather than having to do that all the time, just turn it 90 degrees and just have it as a portrait. That way we won't be messing around. Yeah, just do that. That's fine.
That's better.
Because we got Peter here as well, so but the screen has been filled anyway. Yeah, carry on.
Oh,
Peter.
okay.
So I think that the ANC had a great opportunity, and I mean, we don't have a problem with the ANC. That is not the issue. Where the problem came in South Africa is when the South African Communist Party joined hands with the ANC in 1955. And they compiled and composed this freedom charter that promised equality and equal opportunity for everyone.
National Democratic Revolution.
Well, that's a more recent thing that came out of the 9th Congress, out of Luthuli House. But we're going right back to 1921 was when the South African Communist Party was established.
Right.
And they infiltrated the churches and the labor unions. But as soon as the ANC joined hands with the SACP, we were destined to finish up in the situation that we find ourselves in 2021. So AMSA has got a great opportunity likewise, but it cannot be, I think it's got to be a case of, a lot more can be achieved if you're not too concerned about who gets the credit. You've got to be open to form coalitions and alliances with other like-minded people who share the same ethos and value system.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, sorry, guys, I was just checking out the side chat. Everybody's complaining about the load shedding. So apparently it's widespread.
Yeah. Always
Yeah.
a case of sabotage. And I've got an issue with the camera here. Okay.
No, you look great now. Now that we've just, because your camera was fighting us having you on portrait, sorry, landscape. So we'll stick with portrait. Now,
Okay.
Veronica, why was AMSA formed, and when was it formed, and who formed it?
Okay, let me first answer your why. AMSA was formed to bring a vision to life, to be the voice of the voiceless. And as to who formed it, it was formed by community members on the ground who are so hurtful, excuse my French, by what is going on with the poor service delivery and politicians that cannot be held accountable, always go scot-free. And the vision of AMSA is to have peace and freedom in South Africa. And the agents for the change, that needs to be leaders. That needs leaders working together. Remember, Peter mentioned something about not having to be concerned about who's getting credit. So the acronym team actually resonates to that. Together, each achieves much. And a lot more can be achieved. I agree. I couldn't agree more with Peter. As long as one is not concerned who gets the credits for the work done. And having said that, AMSA is a coalition partner in a process and framework for change, as well as leadership that is essential to bring vision to life, as I mentioned previously. And to add on that one quickly, is that AMSA is also aware that the needs in our country includes all social, economic, political, health, and judiciary challenges. We also know that our country needs truth, justice, and righteousness throughout South Africa. Hence, we do not have issues with race, religion, or culture, as well as even the challenges that all those issues about the ones that divide our people. Now, AMSA was formed against this background, Scott, because we believe that there is hope. All is not lost. As long as each one of us understands that in unity there is power. Myself and Peter Mans and everyone else out there on your own, you cannot bring about this change. But collectively, we can. As Mahatma Gandhi said, I quote, "We but mirror the world," simply implying that if we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would change.
Right. Now, Peter, when did you become involved with AMSA?
Well, when we say involved, I think that we've always been in touch, and we've always, we have a very, very large database, Scott, over the last 27 years.
Wow.
I would say we've got the largest database of churches. I think a wonderful thing about getting to us, you always say we're old farts, but at the end of the day, we need the wisdom of age, but you need that energy of youth.
Yeah.
And I think what is more important now at our age is that we know instinctively, we might not know what we want, but we certainly know what we don't want. And I think that the involvement with, we've seen people come and go. It started off with very humble beginnings in Durban. So the National Peace Commission, when we established that in October of 2019, we then took a decision as the National Peace Commission to start identifying those leaders who shared that common, I don't like the word common, but shared that united vision of bringing change about in the country. And we've identified those people, Scott, and it's about building relationship. It's about relationship relevance, of course, relevance in context with what is happening today and around the world. And then also building relationships, building unity and solidarity And then at the end of the day, you get reformation, and we want peaceful change. So I think, and definitely freedom from despotic, totalitarian and centralized control.
Yeah, carry on, Veronica. You want to add to that? Veronica?
Yeah, actually, there was a little bit of a distortion in the communication, but I quite heard most of what Peter said. You know, while you will agree with me that for obvious reasons, of course, a battle plan is not discussed until one gets to the battlefield. I think I would like to touch up on the reason. I can understand that someone somewhere is still asking the question that what can AMSA do differently from other political parties, as based on what Peter has just said. I will, however, share with you how AMSA will be the first and only true representative of the people to deal with this crime against humanity, and in coalition with other civil society, like the National Peace Commission and community organizations. Because at the end of the day, Peter also mentioned that there are over 600 political parties. And one would say, do we really need another political party? Look, AMSA is still an activist movement, but the fact that AMSA is a political party is a bonus on its own, because it's a movement and a political party that is going to operate differently from what other political parties that have been there in operation for the past 27 years with nothing to show to the people of this country can achieve. So while we're looking into not looking actually, because we are already in the process of that, it's also a question of empowering our voters, because we need to let our people know that they have the power. They are the employers of the politicians, not the other way around. Because our politicians, although we put them there into power, oh Lord, forgive us, we did not know. They tend to forget why they have been put there at the end of the day. You end up with a situation where the kettle calls the pot black. They're eating from the same cookie jar, and at the end of the day, they turn around and say, no, we did not steal it. The ANC is corrupt, but we are not. But you're enjoying the same perks that the ANC is enjoying. Why don't you put your money where your mouth is and come and join the associations, organizations, movements on the ground, and let us get rid of this den of thieves?
Yeah.
So it's a question of we need to take ownership, and it's time for us to come together as South Africans and stop sugarcoating things. Unfortunately, we have to tell it as it is until it is home.
Right. Now, I have to just pick up on a point you've both made, and that is about the over 600 political parties in South Africa. I mean, I find it quite hilarious. I think back in 2019 when Hladi Motsoeneng ran for president, and he was convinced he was going to be president. And you remember that famous little piece where he was on SABC TV, and he gets up there on the podium, and he says, "Fresh air, fresh air."
It's funny that we are laughing about it, but it's not a laughing matter.
It's so sad. It can only happen in South Africa. And then when he got 459 votes in the whole country, the votes were rigged.
There's a lot of people like that, Scott.
Well, you're right. I mean, I speak to so many people who say, I'm going to be the president in 2024. And you think, my gosh, you're going to have 130 presidents of South Africa.
Come on, tell me about it. Tell me about it. Right now, we're just going to make sure that you took the right vaccine once you start announcing that statement.
But I think that we're African realists, Scott. Yeah. We're objective, and I think that the 2019 elections were, they were challenged by 48 political parties at a national level, but the results were predictable. We said that out of the 260 votes held by the ANC, probably 20 or 30 would be lost, the majority of them going to the EFF. which is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make us. You don't need to be a rocket scientist or a quantum physicist to know exactly how the system works. If you have a political party that controls the judiciary and also the executive and the legislature in government, then you certainly have a power that controls the election, because the Independent Electoral Commission is a Chapter 9 organ of state created by the political party. So we saw what happened in America between Republicans and the Democrats. We saw what happened in England with the Labour and the Conservatives. And we see what's happening in South Africa with the ANC and that official opposition party being the DA. But they seem to eat out of the same trough. And at the end of the day, you know, they don't contest one another. There's no accountability.
Exactly.
And there's no transparency, and there's no responsibility for acts, omissions, and actions.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think it's time that it's a time for truth, Scott, you know, and time brings all things to life, and more especially the truth. And we needed 27 years. We needed this research. We needed COVID-19 to expose the evil. We needed to have it, as good, bad, and as ugly it might seem. South Africa needed this because I would say, since Moses was a little boy, we've been trying to tell people that communism is not good for this country. And it was almost like Noah saying, you know, they laughed at Noah until the rains came. But now we're in a position, a comfortable position, to be able to say, you know, it's like, you know, it was Schopenhauer, the German philosophy, you know, the person who said that, you know, truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's fiercely opposed, then it's violently, or let's say it's fiercely ignored, it's violently opposed, and then it becomes self-evident. We reached 27 years. It's a tipping point. And now you cannot deny the situation that we have. But it's not about what we have. It's about what we're going to do now going forward.
Right. Now, I just wanted to respond to a comment that's been made in the side chat. And I'm talking directly to Hugo. He says,
Okay.
ha, ha, ha. China is about to vaporize Australia, but this clown is laughing about South Africa. Well, Hugo, just to put you back in your box, I'm not laughing about South Africa. I'm laughing about some of the clowns who put themselves forward as president. There's a big, big difference. And I would ask you to be careful about what you say in the side chat, because I see that you're a troll, and trolls get removed from the channel if they continue trolling. Okay, now I want to just get back to something that I think is the biggest concern about the 2024 election, and this is why political parties like AMSA really need to get a foothold, and that is what I see as probably the most dangerous outcome, and that is the economic freedom fighters forming an alliance with what's left of the ANC, because I think the ANC are not going to have enough votes in 2024. Now, how dangerous would that be when you consider Julius Malema, his policies, expropriation without compensation, you know, his views against the minority groups? I'm going to put that question to you first, Peter.
Sorry, Julius who?
Malema. Or what do we call him?
Fricky,
I think it is. Fricky Malema.
Scott, I'm not sure that I actually know him. You know, the biggest problem in South Africa is that, you know, the media gives so much attention to these people. And at the end of the day, they become legends in their own minds. And, you know, you've got to look at what they're actually doing. What is their solution? That's what we need to ask them. Anyone in that position of public trust trusted with the, well, let's say the aspirations, the needs, the wants of people. They should be representing, they should be understanding what is good for the country. And the biggest problem that we have these days is that they're given so much recognition. And that's why I said to you, the less recognition that you give them, the far better it is for people to understand that these political leaders are public servants. They have sheltered employment, and a lot of them just want, they want that position purely for what they can get out of it. There's an insatiable need for greed. There's a total lust for power and control. And people are generally motivated by two things, only two things. The one is self-interest, free houses, free electricity, free education. But there's no such thing as free. The only free thing that I've ever found is in a mousetrap, and the second rat gets it. But at the end of the day, the second thing that motivates people is fear. So here you have a typical example. Here you have one person promising all these things that they've either got no intention or no ability to keep those kind of promises, and to the, let's say, the gullible masses. And then on the other hand, you've got the people who are fearful. You've got farm invasions. You're talking about expropriation of property and assets without compensation.
Yeah.
So naturally, you have an element of fear. And the politicians in power, they know that. So they put them against one another. The politics of hate is against gender, to divide families, destroy that fabric of society. You've got people who are, they're motivated by their own, they think with their pocket or their own self-interests. And then you have the other side, which is the races. There's no social, racial, or cultural cohesion. And I think that's what AMSA is all about. And other people or other activist movements and political parties that are prepared to put their own self-interests aside and then decide on what is good for the country. And those, we understand the enemy, Scott. We know. We've had a lot of time to do meticulous research. We're students of the art of war. And, we know that the first principle of the art of war is to win the battle without fighting. And that's why we've established the National Peace Commission.
Right. Now, over to you, Veronica, just regarding the same point with the economic freedom fighters. I guess what defines you when it comes to, if we are in a way to compare 2024 and this option of the EFF and ANC forming an alliance, is that AMSA really embraced the concept of a rainbow nation, which embraces all minority groups. It's not this exclusive, divisive type of political movement like the economic freedom fighters. Do you want to just talk about that particular aspect?
Firstly, Scott, what is a rainbow nation? What colors do you have in the rainbow nation? I don't like
everybody being treated equally.
No, I mean the colors themselves. I mean, you took
I
into
see
a
what
label.
you mean. Yeah, okay. Well, you got black, brown, white. I guess Asian or yellow. I don't know. I don't know.
I've never seen black and white in a rainbow.
No, neither have I.
And exactly my point. So I'm not going to touch on that rainbow nation. But going back to the subject of the matter, AMSA actually, it upholds the principle of the fact that no race matters. We don't play the race card. Remember what I said in the beginning, that we are not even intimidated by these racial issues that always pops up every time when there's a problem and an issue going on. We cannot be busy cleaning ashtrays while the house is on fire. And someone also asked me just now, as Peter was on the line, someone sent me a private message and said, before I go back to your question, I said, why AMSA, why don't you go direct elections? And I would like to respond to that question and say, it doesn't matter what model of electoral process is used. The result will be the same if meritocracy, pragmatism, or moral leadership is not put in positions of public trust. And that is what makes AMSA so different from the 600 political parties in this country, in this season, in 2021. And now, AMSA will not make any promises, coming back to the land issue. AMSA will not make any promises we cannot keep. All what we'll continue to do, we'll continue to demand accountability in the public sector and act as an oversight committee, a watchdog to a present regime that has not been transparent in the past. Because has there been an issue of transparency, we shouldn't even be having this conversation. People are promised things that don't even exist. You must just watch, leading up to these local government elections. Our poor people will be bribed with food parcels, a donkey blanket, and maybe, insulting what they call 350 COVID-19 relief social grants. You should go and see how our post offices look like. It's an insult to our people. So that's the reason why AMSA is so hell-bent in educating not only the voters, but every South African, whether you are in the country or outside the country. It's time to wake up and smell the coffee. Time for moaning and groaning is over. We need to take responsibility with our own hands. We need to pull the bull by its horn. Because at the end of the day, we are going to have another 27 years filled with another 28 cabinet ministers who are busy licking the cream and their whiskers are white as snow every day when you come across them. So we need to take action.
But they're squeaky clean, aren't they?
Tell me about it. Because that's exactly the point, Scott. Because now we know who the enemy is. And it's not even a hidden fact. And we as AMSA, once we know that we know and expose these troublemakers who are connected with the aim to control South Africa and eliminate the mentality of an average person who does not even know the difference between shit and ice cream, excuse my French. South Africans don't need these abrasive talk shows, promises of land without expropriation and whatnot, and all these punitive fronts of approach to such. They are South Africa's list of worries at the moment. Like Peter mentioned earlier on, and I think you also touched on that one, we have a humanitarian crisis here, and we are continually slipping into a maze of junk status and recession, as well as economic crisis. So it's not taking us anywhere. We're going round in circles. Our country is well over 4 trillion worth of rents in debts and counting. The last recorded unemployment stats revealed 12 million of our citizens as unemployed. Now you want to come and talk to me about land without expropriation and all that stuff. We have the escalating corruption and crime, and more than 3 trillion worth of rents have been stolen by the president public servants. Everybody knows that. So it is time South Africans ask difficult questions, engage in difficult engagement and topics. We have a parliament which is the most useless in the entire world. To some people, I was reading some post on one of the social media pages outside our country. It is one of those comedy shows you won't even want to miss if you need to relieve stress from your fruitful day well spent. And there are more than 28 nations, approximately 35, in this country that is being ignored. 15 African nations and at least 13 secular nations. I think Peter touched a little bit on that subject. Those nations are here to help build this country after the Portuguese arrived in 1487. We have become a disillusioned nation and have lost faith in ourselves because there is no contact that is made with those nations. Now, your question was, where is AMSA going earlier on? I wanted to make it clear that AMSA demands consultation with the people and not the World Health Organization. We don't need Cubans or Chinese. That is where we are going with all this. And leading up to these local government elections, we want to call on the Batopele, people first principle, as the promise that was made in terms of service delivery. And lastly, I want to warn and caution the South Africans. We must stop referring to this as the ANC government. It's just a political party. Because to me, they have lost the jurisdiction, they have lost the moral compass, they've lost the legal authority, and they've definitely lost their basic rights. I'm not surprised that they don't even have the money to pay their employees.
Yeah.
They are insolvent. Yes, still they will do anything to hold on to power. Like Peter mentioned, it's all a question of being power hungry.
Now, let me ask you this question. Black economic empowerment. It's divisive, it's racist, it's exclusionary, and it's destroying South Africa, because people who've got skills are going from South Africa to countries like Australia, countries like the United States, countries like the United Kingdom. They're leaving in their droves, and you've got a brain drain, huge brain drain in South Africa. Obviously, the solution is meritocracy, which is what's embraced in Singapore. And you look how that nation has just bounded, forward. South Africa could be like Singapore if they got rid of all these race-based employment laws and regulations and brought in meritocracy. What is AMSA's view on meritocracy as a way forward for South Africa?
We believe in the fact that if there are jobs that needs to be given to the people, nepotism must not be the issue here. The nepotism must not even be anywhere near our vocab. People must be appointed depending on their skills.
Exactly.
If you can do the job, then it must be given to you, irrespective of who are you connected with. Because what our politicians do, they behave like the popcorn seeds that pop only when they feel the heat. And they take every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And that brings me to the issue of this local government elections. Because now that is what is going to happen. I want to make it clear that we at AMSA, before I unpack the issue of meritocracy, I don't even want to sugarcoat it. We don't want the Chinese and the United Nations to take over our municipalities. We are therefore going out in full swing to educate our voters and the people of our beautiful country. We are going to empower our communities to be able to spot the chameleon in a box of Smarties, not to fall victims of free t-shirts or food parcels or even one donkey blanket, like I said, to sustain them for 5 years while living in shacks with no basic human living conditions. Our people must be delivered from the mentality of being a nation of beggars who always collapse in never-ending post office queues of this insult that I mentioned earlier on. We are already making incredible headways as AMSA since we've gone into the public domain, because our country needs people with meritocracy, skilled people, and the people on the ground, communities themselves. They must be the one to choose their own leaders, people that can lead them, so that they can be able to be the ones to fire them. Not depend on political parties to put any mob or broomstick that is going to sit in council and slip their way throughout the entire session and only open their mouths when it is only when either to tell a lie or slant a useless slogan. So our communities need to choose people and identify people who are critical thinkers and strategic planners, people who are available when they need them, who can take our municipalities forward through those projects and visions and bring them to life. Not hire them because they are connected to Peter Mans or Veronica or Scott or whoever. So people must be treated with all the same respect, and we must be open, and the open policy must be made known to everyone else. And that's where our transparency also comes through.
Right. Well, clearly the model used in Singapore works, and South Africa, I think, would benefit hugely from that model. Peter, are you still here?
I'm still here, Scott. I'm just trying to save on the the bandwidth. So
that's
yeah,
fine.
but
I'm here
because I'm not all there. No, I'm just joking.
Marlena says, "Ha ha! Peter Munns looks like a jiving ghost on screen."
I thought he was up in the mountains skiing or something, in some snowy mountains. I just didn't want to say.
No, Scott, comparing us to Singapore, I think that we are nothing like Singapore. In fact, if you have a look, take away the bad bits.
But I'm talking about meritocracy.
Yeah, no,
As a basis.
100%. And that's what I'm talking about as well. From 1948 until 94, South Africa went through an industrial and agrarian or agricultural revolution.
Right.
You know, things did work. It doesn't matter. There were good people and bad politicians and good ones. But at the end of the day, it was exactly that same attitude, a racial issue, education, substandard, but we never had substandard health or education. There were problems, but there was a tremendous amount of skills. My background is electrical and mechanical engineering. I'm a practical kind of guy. And if we had a look at what we have and the skills base that has been lost through cadre deployment and nepotism and cronyism and jobs for pals, that has been the challenge in the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Veronica, what's AMSA's plans for the upcoming local government elections? I think they're in August this year, aren't they?
Okay, I think I've touched a little bit on that one, but let me unpack it. As like I said earlier on, you don't disclose your battle plan until you go into the battlefield. But firstly, let me make it clear. I'm going to repeat this because I want it to echo in the minds of South Africans. This country is being planned, or it is being strategized for this country to be ruled or overtaken by Chinese and the United Nations. And we at AMSA do not want that. And we are going out in full swing to educate our voters and the people of our beautiful country. And at the end of the day, we are going to implement what I would say an AIDA plan. We would like our people to choose leaders that can uphold the AIDA principles in terms of creating awareness that we have a humanitarian crisis, stimulate interest in the general community and civil society to get involved, develop a desire for leadership to participate, because we don't want leadership that is always going missing in action or AWOL. You walk around in a ward or whatever area, you talk to one or two people, you ask them where your councillor's office is. They say, do we have a councillor? I don't even know if you do have a councillor. So we need to develop a desire for leadership to participate and bring the action plan to life. This will save our communities from being represented by the idiots that don't even know what their calling is. And the people will have the power to hire and fire, and it leaves no room for lazy councillors or public representatives. This we intend doing, working hand in hand with coalition partners, of course with civil organizations and movements that share the same sentiments, that uphold the same principle, and keep the same standards as AMSA. Because like I said, alone we cannot do it. It's time that we put our resources together, join hands, and not work against each other, but work with one another.
Right. Peter, do you want to add to what Veronica's just said?
I think she summed it up very well, Scott. I think that's really where we, need to be looking at. And also we want a peaceful solution. We've got this speech coming out in the utterings of National Democratic Revolution. We've got radical economic transformation. We've got expropriation of property assets, including provident and pension funds, without compensation, to prop up, public service, 701 state-owned enterprises, 278 municipalities. And you really need to have, you can't have sustainability. You can't have 20 million people on social grants without socio-economic growth and development.
Yeah.
A person operating off one brain cell has to understand that at the end of the day, socialism and even tribalism is not a solution.
Yeah.
We need a democracy, but we need a democracy based on biblical principles, godly values, and also we want peace and freedom from lawlessness, violence. South Africa's got a history of wars and turmoil and rebellions and labor, civil, tribal unrest. Our country deserves more, and the people deserve more. And that's really what we should be looking at, Scott.
Yeah, and I just want to add to what you're saying there when it comes to the pension funds being looted. All that'll happen to that money is it won't be transferred to the wider population. It'll be stolen by the ANC well-connected, and that's where the money transfer will happen. We just have to look at the history to see that to be self-evident. Now, continuing on, we're currently in South Africa having this COVID-19 crisis where they're talking about the third wave. What is AMSA's stance on how to deal with the COVID-19 issue? Veronica?
Scott, it's so heartbreaking to see the nation that claims to be born free but living in chains. There is no way in 1 million or more years that this ANC Department of Health or the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, or even the Department of International Relations, for that matter, in 2021, could have compiled a statement on rising COVID-19 cases as detailed as the one that is projected. The attention to detail and a scientific analysis of all this report that is being fed our people and that percentage application, it has never been seen before in the history of the management of either municipal areas or disease, or even that corruption and crime in South Africa in the last 27 years. This is a masterpiece in analysis by a political party that believes it has a hands-on control of a virus at the national level. And it always wants the people of this country to believe that nonsense. That's crap. There are also 550 squatter camps, I think Peter touched on that one, in KwaZulu-Natal alone.
Yeah.
And more than 900 in Gauteng. And never in the history of a new democracy has there ever been such a heightened vigilance over health issue. Never in the history of South Africa, under this government, has there ever been such an incredible amount of money and resources expended over a health issue that has 97% recovery rate with vitamin D, ivermectin, zinc, and daily exposure to the sun, as global statistics are ignored. Now, the origin of this report or statement on rising COVID-19 cases by the Department of Health, it cannot be taken at all seriously. Based on the ability of the present ANC performance in every other sector in 278 municipalities, as Peter has mentioned, and the 701 state-owned enterprises in the past 27 years. This has a lack of credibility based on the history of mismanagement in every single sector of this country, including corruption in particular and crime in general. This is so out of character, man, of a political party that cannot even pay South African Receiver of Revenue, SARS, 168 million for provident funds that they could, because of the fraud that is committed. And it's the practicing is seen in all municipal areas with electricity charge as well. So this ANC political party is nothing but just a joke. That they have the guts to release such tests without even basic of substantiating their release or their statement. What I want to tell you again is that never before has there ever been such an interest or need for attention to detail or vigilance over an issue that is invisible. That includes TB, where 63,000 people died in 2019. HIV/AIDS, where 300 people die in every single day, or even the influenza, where more than 19,000 died in the same year of 2019. The economy was also destroyed, well, it still even is anyway. And more than 65 million people put under the military lockdown and house arrest. And justification for it is still yet to be seen. What I'm talking about is an action that was taken in March 2020, based on only 60 reported cases of COVID-19. And there are more than 65 murders a day. And yet no attention is given to law enforcement or law and order, or even the rule of law. This makes a conspiracy it's make of conspiracy, and it's leading to justify an intended action or planned outcome. It is also leading to enforce vaccines in this country. So vaccine for COVID-19, as you and I know, I hope you know that, so they are untested. And it is immunology and science evidence that we're referring to here that don't lie. And these things are nothing else but a synthetic pathogen.
Well, I just want to break in there because you raised a very, very important point, Veronica, and I just have to tell people we've got about 20 guests on our lovinglifetv.com watching this live right now, and I encourage them all to register on lovinglifetv.com from the home page. You can go to the home page at the top, and if you go to the home page and if you scroll down, you'll see the recent videos, and I have a video in there which the title says, "Before family and friends take the jab, share this video with them." I'm going to say no more than that, but I can tell you now that thousands of people have looked at this particular video, and it is a no-brainer for what you're suggesting right now with the vaccine. I'm going to go no further with that because if I go into detail, YouTube will pull down this video. That's what they do. So this is why I have lovinglifetv.com, because we don't get censored by YouTube on this channel or this platform. Now, Peter, back to you. Do you want to add to what Veronica's been saying here about the current lockdown and related affairs?
No, I think Veronica summed it up very well, Scott. The only thing that I'd like to add is that we're extremely well researched, on this. And we also understand we have, medical and health practitioners all over the world now. Time brings all things to life, and more especially the truth. And what we're seeing now is the truth is coming out. We're starting to see these things that it was a bit woolly. We weren't too sure of what was happening. We got wonderful doctors in South Africa, that have not been consulted. They've been totally ignored. The comments coming from all around the world should have been a warning. And that is one of the problems that we have in South Africa. I mean, we've had the global ranking agencies of Fitch, Moody's, Standard & Poor's. You've got the Global Business Confidence Index since 2009 at least. And these, not global warmings, but global warnings, have been totally ignored. And where they get their consultation and where they get their information is with people that they consult with outside of the country, United Nations, BRIC trade partners, who's who in the zoo. And yet the people, 35 nations in this country, are totally ignored, totally. And I mean, the 1997 Bato-Pele principles, the very first one is consultation. If you look, and that's what Veronica spoke about earlier,
right,
is the Department of Kochta that is controlling this whole thing. That's the Department of Cooperation and Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. And then you've also got DIRCO, the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. But we're not seeing cooperation nor consultation with the people who are highly qualified and skilled, yet marginalized and polarized and excluded to the point of political and economic paralysis. So something has to happen, and I think it's starting to happen now, Scott.
Yeah, well, let's face it, Dlamini Zuma couldn't find a bun in a bakery. I mean, she's just absolutely hopeless. Now, back to you, Veronica. The point about unaccountability in the current government, how does AMSA plan to fix this? Because the whole system is corrupt right through. It's, let's say AMSA become government, you're going to have corruption at all levels of government, right down to the little council managers in places like Amanzimtoti. It's going to be rife right through the whole system. How is AMSA going to fix that?
Our country needs fixing. You are correct, Scott. But it can only begin in Parliament. We need a strong spring cleaning of that Parliament. The people of South Africa need to be vigilant. We need to wake up and smell the coffee. Because over and above COVID-19, which is the pandemic that we've got, corruption is yet another pandemic, which we don't have a cure for. We might not have a cure for COVID-19, but the cure for corruption is simple. We need to make sure that we sweep that Parliament clean. Because COVID-19 is not only the threat in our country, but as Peter said, it's an insatiable need for greed and total lust for power and the control. Again, never before has such high levels of vigilance given to a problem such as corruption, rape, murder, drug or human rights abuse, or even human trafficking in South Africa in the past 27 years. And this is such a current high level of vigilance that is so totally out of character and capability. It smacks of conspiracy again. The conspiracy of theory or creative accounting, that is just to justify an end. I mean, how do you have trust and faith in a political party that recently they cannot even settle the bill or even live up to the agreement that they entered into with their service providers who supplied them with election campaign material? I mean, it least must to be desired. Now, we as AMSA, we believe that there is a massive need to save humanity at all costs, including economy. And we need to be vigilant in this season and responsible and hold public servants accountable for their acts and actions since they have ignored the global warnings. AMSA will continue to thrive towards ensuring that consultation with the people of this country happens. We believe that it is time for wisdom, and the people concerned about our future need to be informed. They need to be organized or at least educated and stand in united solidarity to oppose these godless rulers who are determined to steal our freedom and to get rid of this den of thieves and murderers.
Right. Now, before I put that question to you, Peter, I just want to quickly address the side chat and people watching the game. Now, lovinglifetv.com, which is where we're transitioning to, and please do register if you haven't already done so. In the next few days, we're going to be adding 13, that's 13, contributing YouTube channels to lovinglifetv.com. And this is where we're going. We're actually going to target to have up to 50 contributing channels running through lovinglifetv.com in the next year or two. And the whole idea here is to keep the focus on South Africa. And by far the majority of these channels will have a focus on what is happening in South Africa. So the goal with lovinglifetv.com is to become the most comprehensive news platform on the internet covering what is happening in South Africa. And for those people who register, in the near future, you'll get a once-a-day email, rather like when you get an alert from YouTube, but it'll just be a once-a-day email from lovinglifetv.com, which will list all the updates from contributing channels, from the forum. We've got an excellent forum, which is linked at the top of the page you're on right now. All these different articles that are coming through, you can basically just click on those links to go directly to the video or go to the news article about South Africa. So just think about this as the center of the universe when it comes to South African news on the internet. That is our objective, and we're getting there fast. So please do make sure that you register and become part of the community, because we have live streams most nights here at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time. And we cover a wide range of subjects, some controversial, some fairly inane, but we have jamming sessions for our Loving Life family on a regular basis where we get great singers on. And it is a very well-informed family, believe me, because we cover so much here. Now, Peter, I'm sorry I burbled on a bit there, but Just asking you the same question that I asked Veronica about the lack of accountability and how AMSA can fix this. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yes, Scott. I think that, some of the people that have to share the responsibility of where we are in South Africa, there are more than 75,865 churches. We've got more than 35 business chambers, captains of industry, mind leaders in commerce. You've got church and servant leaders. 80% of the population claim to be Christian, but it's a silence of this, let's say, moral minority that is also responsible. And we need to take responsibility for this humanitarian and economic crisis that we find ourselves in, because there was no voice. There was no voice before, a voice of truth, reason, and wisdom. You had that before when the ANC political party was given powers, the reign of powers, through a 1992 referendum. They went into power by virtue of the African Caucasians, the whites, who agreed that we needed democracy. We needed to put an end to this liberation, this communist liberation revolution, which they called a freedom struggle. And I think we were tired of wars. We were tired of conflict and dissension and racial conflict and that politics of hate. So we saw an opportunity in 1992 to bring an element of peace, but that never continued. That was never, ever brought to fruition. So I think it was an expectation. But you had people, you had activists like Tutu, Huddleston, Chikani, Bussack, Ramaphosa, who went into the boardrooms. And in 1986, more than 286 billion US dollars was disinvested under the threat of boycott, strikes, and labor unrest. So that was the motivation to get people to either release Mandela and also bring in a new democratic dispensation, and that's what we hope for. But at the end of the day, now we have a situation where we have Cuban engineers coming in to assist with managing the municipalities. Then we also have Cuban doctors coming in to assist with this whole COVID-19 rollout. And then, of course, you've got the latest development. We've got 278 municipalities, 701 state-owned enterprises, and there's already a plan in OR Tambo in Eastern Cape, Transkei. You've got Waterberg in Limpopo and Tukwini municipality that have been targeted for United Nations and assistance from the BRIC trade partners. Now, where do you do that? I mean, I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years. Imagine if I went there and said to the powers that be in China, excuse me, I'm doing a bit of business here in China, in Hong Kong, and how would you feel if I open up 23 South African police stations? I don't think that would be acceptable.
You wouldn't get very far, that's for sure.
I don't. Well, they'd probably lock me in a room and throw the room away, Scott. But at the end of the day, what we need now is people who can really think for themselves.
Absolutely.
We need, as Veronica said, we need people with wisdom, and wisdom is really an understanding mind and a compassionate heart. So we're not seeing the compassion. We're not seeing, we've got a high level of unemployment, closure of the economy to chase an invisible virus or test the entire nation to see that you do have some kind of a medical problem. And this is really, I think it's an eye-opener for most people.
Right.
But you've really got to be gullible to believe what we're seeing going on in this country at the moment.
Right. I guess what we're saying in a word is that, or in a short sentence, is that South Africa needs leaders, not liars.
That's what we're saying, Scott. That is exactly. We're inspired. I think 80% of the population claim to be Christian, so they'll understand this.
Yeah.
But in Judges 6-8, the story of Gideon, you only needed 300 people to defeat an army larger than 36,000. But we're not going to a war. We have a war. I mean, because when a country, when a government bears arms and uses its South African Defence Force and its military and also police capability to force people under house arrest, that is, it's not an acceptable situation.
Yeah.
If you have a look at the Nuremberg Charter, there's clear evidence of that. And I mean, corruption is a crime against humanity. Even the United Nations define corruption as an abuse of entrusted power for self-interest or selfish gain. And there's more than enough evidence of that.
Yeah. And it's so endemic in South Africa. Now, let's look at the municipalities. This is one of my favorite subjects that I just, it just makes me gag. There's something like 20 municipalities in the whole of South Africa that actually have a fairly clean audit done.
18.
Well, okay, 18 then. But there's something like 276 municipalities in South Africa.
78.
Sorry?
278.
I was pretty close.
You weren't. 4,300 ward, yeah.
Okay. But, all right, there are 278 municipalities in South Africa, and only 18 got a clean sheet. Now, I think most of those are actually in the Western Cape. Veronica, how are you going to fix the crap? I mean, you take the municipality of Ugu, which should have so much water because it's in KwaZulu-Natal. It services Port Shepstone. You've got a lot of rain that comes down there, and yet they don't have drinking water because the municipality is completely cactus. I mean, that's just one example out of hundreds. How are you going to fix that problem, Veronica?
Scott, Peter mentioned earlier that we have 278 municipalities, not only in KZN, in the entire country.
Yeah.
Out of which only 18 came out with a clean audit in 2019. This is not a doom and gloom or negative friends or anything in this other than reality of this situation. And it cannot be denied. It can't be disputed. It can't even be ignored by the people of South Africa. And AMSA, unfortunately, or rather fortunately, needs to tell it the way it is. Actually, it is otherwise those that are in denial or ignorance who will allow this to continue without any action being taken to bring about change in this season. And the government loyalists will continue to defend their acts, omissions, and actions in blind loyalty to grassroots movements. And the political party that started in 1912 in South Africa, but became a communist-led and Marxist-inspired leadership that has produced nothing but junk status, economic recession, and even the destruction of 278 municipalities and 701 state-owned enterprises in only 27 years. Sad truth. We need to accept and then bring about the change. Now, I always like what Peter normally says. We have a library of evidence and a museum of truth. We have an action plan, and we also have a battle plan. Unfortunately, for obvious reasons, you don't disclose the battle plan until you are in the battlefield. But what I can share with you and the audience, or the viewers rather, is the fact that under the leadership of AMSA, thank God for this era of the local government elections, because of the solidarity and the unity that we will be having with the communities on the ground, this is where we are going to start. Again, I repeat, we can't be cleaning the ashtrays while the house is on fire. So we need to start first at our municipalities. We can't be talking parliament while one ward in Persephone, the area that you mentioned, they have been living in shacks since 1994, 96. Over the weekend, I had an opportunity to interact with some of the informal settlement dwellers here in eThekwini. You know, it broke my heart. That old gentleman with his family, he decided to set up a double story with a sliding door of a tin roof house in structure. And he said, this is all I can afford. I have accepted my situation because I've been here since 1996. And I saw him, his gray hair. He's got three grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren. He said, this is my life. Unfortunately, I cannot blame anyone because I kept on putting the same people back into power, whether come local government elections or national elections. And I was in a way, although sad, but I got excited that he was telling this to the born-frees, the 2000s, the ones who are eligible voters, who have been disillusioned, because we never gave them reason enough to participate and become responsible citizens when it comes to electing their leadership and the public servants. So that is the first thing that we're going to do. Educate and educate and educate and empower our voters and insist on people's responsibility, people taking power in their own hands, and insist on people being their very own watchdog. If you have put me there as your public rep, I need to know that you are paying my salary, not the other way around. I'm answerable to you as a community member, not the other way around. So that's the first thing that we're going to change. And we are still working on, we have already begun working on that at the moment.
Right. Now, Peter, can I ask you to address the same issue? And before you do, just be aware that I need to go and visit a little room. So take your time in your answer. I'll be back shortly.
Okay, Scott. Now, I think that, we've had many, many years of meticulous research. We've come to understand the needs in the country in terms of, as we spoke, social, economic, political, health, and justice. And it's a travesty of justice to find how the people are actually living in those terrible conditions. It's also very important to understand that it's a case of priority. In 2010, we had 10 shrines to stupidity built at a cost of 68 billion rand and counting. Soccer stadiums that cost between 80 and 100 million a year to keep their lights on and their security in place. And that 68 billion could have been spent far better than entertaining. We had 400,000 sports enthusiasts and tourists visiting our country. It was a great event. It was life-changing in a way, but that money could have been spent a lot better on other things beyond soccer. Soccer doesn't feed the people, and no sport does, and it's purely entertainment. But at the end of the day, those stadiums are going into a state of disrepair. They need maintenance, and it's the ratepayers at the end of the day, and also the taxpayers that need to maintain them. So if you have a look at the various these squatter camps, informal settlements, the pollution and the poverty in those. And we even put together what is called the Solomon Project to address these, Solomon as in wisdom, because these societal problems that are taking place are never addressed. We see infrastructural development, and over the next, I'll see that, Scott, but or I hear that. But over the next 10 years, there's a 2.3 trillion rand investment for infrastructure. But infrastructure doesn't feed the people, and it doesn't deal with the health, and it doesn't deal with these poverty crisis. If we have a look also in KwaZulu-Natal, we've got tremendous challenges. We had a wonderful relationship with the late King Zwelithini, and we spent a lot of time in Zululand, understanding the needs of the poor and the need for infrastructural development, but also agricultural development and food security. And the food security is under threat at the moment. That should be a priority. Education, substandard health, substandard education, all these things. And it's very, very important that these things are brought back to reality. It looks like we've lost Veronica, Scott.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Veronica, are you there? Okay. Well, let's just continue, Peter.
Okay.
There's just one or two questions that we still need to address. So we're coming to the end of the live stream.
Yes.
Now, I guess the one that really bothers me is the state-owned enterprises. You know,
Yes.
they've totally destroyed very profitable, well-functioning state-owned enterprises, and people who are watching tonight understand exactly what I'm talking about when we talk about, for example, what they've done to Eskom. A couple of years ago, when Fakamani, whatever his name was, used to be the CEO of Eskom, I used to say, well, Eskom is Fakamani'd. And basically, that's what they've done to these state-owned enterprises, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott.
Do you want to just talk about how that's depressed the economy in South Africa and completely, destroyed it?
Well, I mean, Scott, the most important thing, I mean, we've done a lot of work as president of the South Coast Business Chamber for 9 years. We did a lot of work with local economic development, Department of Cochta, DIRCO, Department of Forestry, and tourism and all that, and spent a lot of time in terms of spatial development, bulk services, sewerage, water, electricity. You cannot have socio-economic growth and development if you don't have renewable energy and reliable source of energy. And the plans that they have, either from nuclear power stations through to windmills, there are solutions, whether they be solar. There are people in this country who have got tremendous solutions. There's a company called Hydrome that has been banging on the door of government for ages to provide alternative sources of renewable energy. But there's no consultation. We come back to that Batopele people first principle of consultation. What is there? What do captains of industry, what do mind leaders in commerce have to do? They should be worrying about agricultural development, making sure that there's no farm invasions, and that food security is a priority.
Yeah.
Especially during this period of COVID-19. If you have a look at the state-owned enterprises, I mean, the handouts, bailouts, and cash outs are embarrassing. I mean, South African Airways never put in returns for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the kind of things that are happening. And Eskom, as I say, it's no longer a joke. It's a circus, and it only hurts when you laugh, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now I'm trying to reconnect Veronica, but she might have had a problem with her internet.
Or power surge. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions from the side chat. I'll just put them to you, Peter.
Okay.
Marius has asked.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I'll try and answer them the best I
Yeah.
can.
Now, Marius has asked one for Veronica, but I guess you'll be able to. Are you back with us, Veronica? Hi, Veronica. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's raining here and your signal is getting poorer and poorer.
Okay, that's okay. Look, I've got a question for you, Veronica, from Marius. And he says, did Veronica ever speak to some of the lead ANC and EFF people telling them their fortune? In other words, telling them where to get off? Oops, we lost her again. Let me put that question to you, Peter. Do you know if Veronica's done that?
Well, you know, Scott, I think it would just fall on deaf ears, to be honest. You know, the daily tabloids and the media are replete with evidence of these acts and omissions and actions over the years. And there is no accountability. You know, that is why a lot of the business chambers have also become politicized, because they don't want an oversight committee. They don't want people to tell them what to do or how to do it. In 2019, when we established the National Peace Commission, the whole reason for establishing the South African Christian Chamber of Business in July was in response to the junk status and recession in July of 2019. In 2019, November, we approached the Anti-Corruption Tribunal and also the Zondo Commission to be an oversight committee. In other words, you can't investigate yourself. You can't, the corruption that is being perpetrated in the public sector, you can't get the public sector to investigate that and expect a reliable or truthful outcome. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So how would it help to speak to the people that are in these positions of public trust? It hasn't worked for 27 years.
Yeah.
So I think it would just fall on deaf ears. It would be a waste of breath. And I think now is a time that, you know, they're starting to see even the divisions in their own camp. They can't even reach agreement on basic issues. Never mind at least providing some kind of transparency.
Hang on. I'll just invite Veronica back into the conversation. Give me a second.
Okie dokie.
Okay. She just tried to ring me there, but that wouldn't bring her into the conversation. Okay. Sorry, carry on, Peter.
You know, so I think to answer that question, you know, Scott, it doesn't help. Protests. I mean, you can wear your shoes out all day long. You can have placards and protests and, you know, these memorandums and ultimatums and whatever. They're ignored. I mean, in March, just after the lockdown in April, the National Peace Commission were the first.
Yeah.
The first out of the gate.
Just before we go on,
yeah.
Welcome back, Veronica. Thank you I understand your technical issues there. But I also just want to say, Peter, that for people who are interested in finding out more about SACOB and the National Peace Commission, if they go to the top of the lovinglifetv.com page under contributing channels, there's a direct link to your web pages for SACOB and for the National Peace Commission under that particular section. And they can find out more about them there. And while they're there, please remember to go and check out the forums. We have a very active forum, lots of interesting comments. You can put your own comments in there and so on. Okay, now, Veronica, I'm just going to cross to you quickly. We're just coming to the end of the live stream. But the question that was asked, in fact, I'll give you this question, which has come from Tokolosh, who says, Please ask Veronica who is committing the crime in South Africa and if she is going to allow us to bring in the death sentence.
I'm sorry, Scott, there's a whole lot of distortion.
Couldn't you hear me, Veronica?
Sorry, Scott, my network is very, very bad. There's a whole lot of distortion. You're breaking.
Okay, all right. I can hear you quite clearly. Look, Peter, I might put that question.
Connection lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
I might put that question to you because I think Veronica's battling with her network.
Okay, Scott, I would say. I would. You want me to respond?
Yeah, please do, Peter.
I would say that it would be absolutely suicidal for this country under the present judicial system, where you have total centralized control over the courts, over the judiciary, and at a central control to bring back the death penalty. The people in this country should also remember that we should be seeking restorative justice. Those who have committed crimes, they should pay back. For the Christians here, it's Leviticus 6:1-7. They should pay for their crimes, not just be put in jail at the taxpayer's expense, because if you have judges who are appointed by people such as the person previously mentioned, that I keep on forgetting his name, but there is a judicial selection commission at the moment, and it's headed by people who have been appointed by the ANC. And so therefore those magistrates and those judges are going to make decisions.
And Julius Malema's on their panel too.
Sorry, who's that?
Julius Malema, Frikkie.
Okay, yes, yeah, absolutely, Scott. And the bottom line is that when you have that kind of selection, which is politically motivated, can you imagine a judge who has somebody who is totally innocent? There are going to be plenty of innocent people that will hang, shot, gassed, electrocuted, or whatever. But there's also going to be a lot of innocent people killed and a lot of guilty people that will go free. We can't even consider the death penalty until we have a jury system in this country, where you have, it's in Deuteronomy 19:15-19. You need a fair trial. You need an unbiased judge. You need people who are able to have wisdom in that universal court. And that's what we need. We need a universal court of human rights and justice in this country, Scott. And that is what we are advocating. We want a democratic country, but then again, we also want that separation of powers. You cannot have an executive, legislature, which is your lawmaking body, and a judiciary that are under the office of the president.
Right. Okay, now I'm going to wrap up this live stream. And Veronica, I'm going to ask you just to make a short closing statement to people who are watching and perhaps people who will be watching the video later. Is there something you'd like to share with them? I think we've lost Veronica. Peter, let me put this...
Quickly, because my net...
Yeah, go ahead, Veronica.
In a nutshell, should I go for it?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Yes. No.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Peter, the end result is no one of these cadres are being brought to book. And the end result is that the citizens of this country are suffering. But the power to change lies within the people. The power to bring hope back into this country lies within the people. And we at AMSA, we cannot do it alone. We cannot do it on our own. We need all organizations, all civil associations, like the National Peace Commission that has joined hands with us, and many others, of course. We need to join hands together and work in solidarity so that we can get rid of these devastating situations, we don't command respect. We don't demand respect. We need to become a nation that now commands respect. And we can retrieve that only if we work together. That is why, at the end of the day, I would like to invite people, to visit our website in www.amsa.org.za and to get more information. And let communities roll their sleeves up and choose their own leaders so that tomorrow they can be able to get rid of their own leaders or even hold them accountable without AMSA having to tell them that let your community leader or a public rep or a councillor finish his office term. What the hell? While he's still chowing your taxpayers' money, he must finish his 5-year term doing what? So that needs to change. But only South Africans can take the power back into their hands. Thank you, Scott.
Right. Thank you, Veronica. Peter, is there something you'd like to say and just sum up this live stream?
Yeah, Scott, I think that we need to go back to the drawing board and we need to, there's no future in the past, but we certainly need to learn from history and not repeat the same mistake. We've seen British colonial rule, we've seen white minority rule, and we've seen African majority rule. And this isn't about Africans in particular and blacks in general. This is about, we've got more than 35 nations here in this country. And those 35 nations, we need to put aside this racial issue, this Indian and mixed races or colored and black or white. Just bury that race card. We must be starting to talk about a nationhood, about a United Nations of South Africa, where the nations come together. If you have a look at the Boer nation, it was born out of the 1630 Dutch, 1660 German, and also the 1685 French settler nations in this country. Out of that came the Boer nation. There's 4 nations. When the British settlers came here in 1820, the Irish, the Welsh, the Scottish, and the English came here. And out of that, so those nations helped build this country. Those people are being ignored, polarized, marginalized, and excluded. So I think that we've got to go back to the drawing board and say, we need those people to join hands, to come together, and we need a United Nations of South Africa. We don't need the United Nations, which is a discussion panel for 193 worldviews that can't even solve corruption or poverty problems in the world. So why do we need the United Nations in The Hague? No, we don't. We've got United Nations here, Scott. Right. And those are the people that need to come together.
Yeah. All right, Veronica.
Absolutely.
And Peter, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's
a
been a pleasure having you both on. And Peter's a regular visitor or guest on our channel, so it's always good to have Peter.
It's a good family. Guys. Ambassadors for truth.
Thank you so much for having us, and my apologies for the network glitches and connections.
Look, that's okay. I totally understand it, and I've noticed that it's getting worse and worse in South Africa. So it's just great that you were able to put your message out there tonight.
It just confirms, Scott. It just confirms what we are fighting for, because now this government has killed the goose that lays the golden egg. Or the cow that has been giving us milk, as you can see.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
All right. I just want to thank the moderators for the great job that they always do in the side chat. And I noticed that that troll who came on early in the piece has disappeared. Well, good riddance. That's all I can say to that.
Really?
And for everybody who's joined us tonight and listened in, I hope that you found this live stream of interest. And remember, every night, most nights at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time, we have live streams here on lovinglivetv.com. And once again, I would encourage, we've got 14 guests listening right now. I'd encourage them to register. Just go to the top of the lovinglivetv.com page, click home, and you'll see a register button. If you register, once we start sending out daily emails with all our updates and all the contributing channels that are going to be participating largely on South African news, you will be getting into the biggest news platform on the internet. That's our goal, and that's what we're aiming to achieve. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up now. Have a great evening, and
you too, Scott.
Thanks, Peter.
Thank you. I want to say you too. You go and have a great breakfast. Bye-bye.
Yeah, it's nearly 5:30 a.m. here. Well, it's 5:40 a.m. now. But
You can't go back to bed anyway.
what sleep?
Thank you, Scott, for such a great channel.
Thanks,
Thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, look, this channel is going to explode in growth. There's no question about that. It's just having content, and that's what we're developing.
Absolutely.
It is. It's going way. It's going places.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, I'm going to leave the side chat open for a few minutes so that people can say their goodbyes and have a bit of a chat. But hope to see you tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Johannesburg time when we discuss another topic. Bye for now.
Okay. Bye for now.
Scott.
Bye, Peter.
Bye-bye, Veronica.